Free mind, you crazy for this. Soulful. It's like our responsibility to make us feel something. You know, to make people feel what we feeling. Hey, yo.
Regie here, and I want to welcome you to Comics Today. This is a show that we've been doing for 75 weeks strong on Wednesday to celebrate the best day of the week, that being a new comic book day. And as part of this show, I typically have on a guest or two to help me to make sense of something that is happening in the world of comics and collectibles. And we will have two guests on tonight's show that will help me to talk about a couple of things. And I will tell you, had a show all planned, and then some craziness broke out that we are going to talk about ever so briefly before we bring on our first guest. But you know, this is one of those days, man, to be honest with you, that to some degree or another, YouTubers live for, right? We live for stuff happening that we get to comment on, versus a day where nothing happens. And it's like, you have to make up stuff to talk about, especially if you have a live show planned. This is not that day. This is not that day because the show was already jam-packed, but we are going to make it happen. I typically during this point go to the chat to see what folks may have picked up at the local comic shops. I ask them if there's something that they've read that it was really good that we should put on the top of our stack, that they let us know what that is. If they want to shout out their LCS, we ask them to do that as well. But we're going to forego that. We're going to forego that part. I will encourage you to do those things in the chat, however, if you are here, because again, I think this is a great opportunity for us to let people know what good stuff is coming out that people should be checking out. So I definitely want to encourage people to do that. As a reminder as well, this show is going to be rebroadcast next week on the podcast. So if you are not taking Regie on the go, I definitely want to encourage you to access the podcast on your preferred podcasting platform, and you can check me out. There's like 100+ shows that are out there. I think we just a few weeks ago surpassed 20,000 downloads. I think we're up to like 24,000 downloads on the podcast, which I think is really great. So a lot of people are in fact tapping into that. Speaking of good stuff to tap into, I want to tell you guys about an opportunity that came my way for you. Technically, this is all for you guys. So I have a prepared statement. That way I don't miss any of the fine details. But this week's sponsor of Comics Today is Infinity Comics. And Infinity Comics is one of the biggest and most recognized online comic book dealers in the world. And they sell exclusively, as of now, on Hip Comic. They were elsewhere before, but now only on Hip Comic, and they host daily auctions featuring tons of amazing titles, including raw books, graded books, keys, non-keys, rare gems, and everything in between. And I can tell you, I was on their page earlier. There is a little something for everybody. I encourage you guys to check it out, and also to listen to this part here. This week, they are offering a special promotion for you guys. Anyone that makes a purchase this week of any book of any value using the code Regie at checkout is going to receive a free book with their order. I have no clue what the free book is. I'm going to be honest with you. I have no clue what the free book is, but three random people that place an order using the code Regie will have in their box a free high-grade copy of Marvel Superhero Secret War issue number 8 for free. 3 copies randomly inserted. Now, here's the thing. You have a deadline. The deadline is coming up. You have to complete your order with Infinity Comics by the end of the month, by the end of the day on May 31st, in order to actually be in the running. And again, you have to use the code Regie at checkout. There is a link down in the description. I encourage you guys to take advantage of this. There are DC Comics, Marvel Comics, old comics, new comics, Superman, Superboy, Thanos Quest, you name it. They have a ton of stuff on their page. And simply for buying something, you get something for free. Plus, you have shot on goal at getting a copy of Secret Wars issue number 8. This offer is good, 1 per person. So you can complete multiple transactions, but you only get 1 entry, and you also only get 1 free book with as many orders as you want to place. I encourage you guys to check it out. There's a link in the description. Do it after you watch the show. Like, just watch the show first before you get to that part. All right. So that was the big thing that I wanted to cover off on. The other thing is I want to acknowledge a member of the community, and I'm not going to say who this person is because I did not get permission to share their news with their name. But I will tell you that a member of the community is having his first grandchild right now, and I think that that's really, really cool. So needless to say, they are going to miss the show, but I'm expecting our subscriber count to go up by at least one as a result of this birth. So shout out to that person who reached out to me right before. And they didn't say this. They didn't say, hey, I'm going to miss the show. They were like, I'm going to the hospital to see my first grandchild. And I was like, well, I guess you're going to miss the show. Like, that was my internal dialogue that I was running with myself. But let me give you guys also a quick update. Right behind me, this is a big deal. This is the very first time I have ever had an all DC wall. This is the very first time in the history of me doing YouTube that I've had an all DC wall. And so I want to run down what is back there so that you guys can see what's back there. Top row, this side first, we have Batman 136, a 7.5. Next to that, Batman 155, a 4.0. I think you guys can see that. Batman 234 right there, which is the first Silver Age appearance of Two-Face. Next to that, we have a couple of Green Lanterns. Green Lantern 76 and a 6.5, 87 and a 6.5. Definitely was on a 6.5 kick there for a sec. And then behind the Comics Today banner is New Gods issue number 2. I think one of the only PGX books that is actually in the collection. At the time I picked it up, there were no other graded copies out there, and the PGX book was a good price, and I needed it for the run, so I went ahead and picked it up. It's actually a 9.2. Next to that is Forever People, a 9.0 that I actually picked up from A1 Comics. They had an online auction. Price was great. Went ahead and snagged that, added it to the PC. Bottom row over there, Batman Adventures issue number 12, 9.6. Next to that, Detective Comics 880, wonderful Jacques cover. Zatanna issue number 16, 9.6. The last few have been 9.6s. That Zatanna was actually a gift from Thanos. Thanos Comics actually hooked me up with that. Thanatos, sorry. Next to that, we have Batman issue number 357, which is directly behind me right there. Batman 368, Batman 386, and then last but not least, Batman 635. All of those are 9.8s. I'll also tell you, not a single book back there has a notation of any sort on its cover, which actually on its label, which actually brings me to the unscripted, unplanned portion of this. Again, before we get to our first guest, I received so many messages flowed into my DMs today about this press release that was issued by CGC. Parameters modified for defects listed on CGC Comics. And I just ripped through a gang of books behind me. Not a single book behind me actually has any type of defect mentioned. And I will tell you, I went through my collection. I only found so far 2 books that even have any type of defects that are noted on the label. But let's go through this thing. It says, based upon feedback from prominent members of the collecting community, CGC is implementing a change that will reduce the number of defects that are identified on the comic book label. So there you go. That's how they're starting it off. Traditionally, certain defects were listed on the CGC label if they were present on the certified comic book, which were also recorded in the grader's notes. Says now, because CGC members now have access to free notes, this is redundant and is being eliminated from the label. So again, Graders Notes are indeed free to folks that have memberships. The lowest membership level is $25, or $2 per month is essentially what will get you access to all the Graders Notes in the world. But essentially what they are saying, they're removing from the label, because it's redundant to have it on the label and inside of the Graders Note system, are stickers, Siamese pages, hole punches, staples added after manufacturing, staples removed, detachments, fully split spines, tape, significant parts removed from the cover, lamination, miscuts, puzzles, or coupons filled out. They go on to say that they will continue to identify on the label any significant missing pieces, pages, wraps, or inserts from the interior of the comic. Each comic book's grade will reflect all missing parts, and those missing parts will be recorded in the grader's notes. They are also discontinuing the term incomplete on the label, as well as the term affect story and does not affect story when parts are missing from the interior. They do note here again that anything related to restoration or conservation and qualifiers that have been included in the past, including married parts, color copies, wrong parts, coverless comics, all of that stuff will still be done. They're still going to do that part. But I can tell you this has caused a lot of outrage, and personally, I'm struggling. I'm struggling just a little bit with why people are so upset. So in my head, the vast majority of books that are out there are blue labels. The vast majority of books that are out there that are blue labels probably have no notations on the label. You could probably say the same thing about yellow label. So what are we really talking about here? We're talking about potentially purple label, but not really, because purple labels counts as restoration and restoration remains unchanged. So we're talking about green label. That's essentially what we're talking about. The percentage of green labels that are out there versus all the other labels is probably the smallest amount out there, right? Potentially the smallest amount out there. So what are we really talking about here? Right? Why are people so upset about this? I don't know. What I will tell you is that as you look at this list, the stuff that does give me pause are the things that cannot be observed, i.e. things that are interior to the book or are not readily known when you look at the book. If the book has holes punched in it, you're going to be able to see that. You're going to know that there's holes. If there's tape on the exterior, you're going to know that there's tape. If there's parts missing from the cover, you're going to see it, right? Some of the other internal stuff I struggle with, maybe not puzzles or coupons that have been filled out, not so much, but things like detached covers, detached centerfolds, those are probably some of the bigger things that give me a little pause, right? Significant missing parts from it says from cover. Again, that would be observable, but it's more of those internal things that give me a little pause because those are not things that are readily known. And I spent some time actually going through my own collection very quickly. And as I mentioned, I didn't really come across a whole lot of books that have notations on them, right? I found 2 in the O Sugar box. So let me take this off the screen. I found 2 in the O Sugar box. One of them is my Amazing Fantasy 15. It has what? It has a detached cover and tape on the cover. The tape, honestly, I can see it clear as day. The detachment, to some degree or another, it's a 1.0. You kind of sort of know that there's some major flaws here, but I could understand. I can understand how not having the detachment on something like that would give people pause. But again, if you're going to spend that kind of money, you probably have a CGC membership and will spend $2 in order to get the grader's notes. The other book that I found was My Incredible Hulk issue #1. This book also has a detached cover. And again, it's a 2.0. The book looks pretty darn good, but it's a 2.0. And again, why is it a 2.0? Because it has a detached cover. Outside of those 2 books, I have not really found any books in my collection that actually have notations on them, right? And so maybe I'm not thinking about this clearly. Maybe I'm not thinking about it as fully. But those are my initial thoughts, right? I get why people may be upset when it comes to the interior stuff. The exterior stuff, not so much, because those things are observable. Like, you can literally see tape. You can literally see pieces missing. The interior stuff gives me a little pause. And as I mentioned, I would ask people, look at your collections. Look at what you actually have in your collection. Probably a lot of blue labels, probably not a lot of green labels. And most of the blue labels you have probably don't even have any notations at all. So why are we really upset? I don't know. My other big thing is, buy grader's notes, get the $25 membership and get access to all the notes, because the reality is that not all the notes fit on the label anyway. So if you're buying a book that has defects and you're buying it just based upon what's actually on the label, you're probably missing some important points. So you may want to go ahead and have a membership so that you can look at the notes and fully understand what it is that you're buying. Or follow the advice that I gave in one of my videos. Find a buddy. Find a buddy that can look it up for you and give you a rundown, because the data is out there. The reality is, I don't know why CGC has done what they've done. I really don't know. I have no clue. When they said that they asked people, they didn't ask me, because I probably would have said, hey, this is maybe not a good move. But I was not asked. Well, I was not asked at all. But again, a lot of folks out there are upset. But I would say take a moment and think about the actual implications for you of what is actually being done. And a lot of folks have said they worry for those people that may be taken advantage of out there, where things are not being disclosed, people that are not knowledgeable. I too am worried about that. That is like part of the reason why I have a YouTube channel where I create videos to tell people to go out and think about these things. Get a pricing guide, get this, get that, so you can make informed decisions. That talk track remains unchanged. That talk track is literally the same, right? People should have access to a pricing guide. If no Graders Notes are available for $25 annually, pay the $25, get the Graders Notes, and go ahead and make some informed decisions. There are folks out there that are saying that they're going to switch to CBCS as a result of this. I'm on the struggle bus with that. We've looked at the data. The data would suggest that CBCS books actually go for less than CGC books. So if you're going to switch to CBCS over $25, I don't know what to do with that, right? Because the reality is that you're probably going to end up losing more money just based upon the data that's out there by making that type of switch. But people have to make the decision that is best for them. But what I would say is sometimes we have to slow down and we have to think about what's being said, and we have to think about the actual impact on us as we go through that, and maybe potentially where we are upset for maybe not some good reasons. But I don't know. I think people have to think about it for themselves. All right. So again, this was something that I had to talk about. It was not in the agenda. It was not in the agenda when we set out, but we had to at least talk about it for a few minutes, and then maybe we'll get back to it at the end of the show. So I want to make a hard turn here. I want to make a hard turn real quick, because I want to follow up on something that was discussed earlier technically on Sunday. On Sunday, I spent a little bit of time talking about Stan Lee and the deal that was made between Marvel and the estate for Stan Lee, where they have basically licensed his likeness for the next 20 years. And they plan to use his likeness, his voice, his face, et cetera, and in a host of different ways. And I was alerted to this by a member of the community, a guy by the name of Joe, that told me about it. And I went and I did some research, and then I did the live show. But I also wanted to get somebody on the show to spend a little bit of time talking with me about this. So I want to welcome to the show right now my man Joe, who hipped me to this. Joe, how you doing, brother?
Doing well, Reggie. How are you?
Brother, I was watching your facial expressions as I was going through the first part of it, and I was trying to keep it together. I am doing well. It is good to see you. Talk with me about this Stan Lee thing, man. You were, I think, the very first person that alerted me to what was happening with this. What was your initial impression of the news when you read it?
Well, I think my initial impression was pretty much reactive.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us, especially some older guys like me, kind of grew up with Stan, and we have kind of a feeling that he's part of our family. I know I'm not his executor of his estate, which would have been kind of nice, but he didn't ask me. He didn't put my name in his will. And that his daughter is, or at least the trust or whatever was set up to handle his post-life income, which obviously he has. So my feeling right away was, what did Stan want this?
Yeah.
And I think that the articles, and I read a number of them, I know as you had, would have mentioned that Stan had indicated that this was okay, wanted to do it, something like that. They didn't say anything like that. So right away in my mind, it was, Stan didn't say this was okay.
Yeah.
He might be okay with it post-mortem, I don't know, but he didn't say it was okay.
Yeah. And
certainly towards the end of his life, he did have some, cognitive issues. I know my dad died at 95 and a half, and I could see it in him. He's functional, but memory not good, forgetting he was doing something, that type of stuff. So if he did say okay in his last few years, that probably would not be sufficient. So from my standpoint, I'm saying, okay, so right away, the matter of control came into my mind, and from two parts. Number one, somebody else now is controlling, what he would have wanted. All right. And again, the whatever his daughter is, executor of the estate, whatever it happens to be, I don't know what the legal situation is. She does have some authority to do that, right?
Right.
But the second thing is also, how are they going to use him? What are they going to make him say? Maybe they're going to make him say and do things that Stan would not have wanted to be done.
Yep.
And I started thinking a little bit more about, from a legal perspective. I know there's no right in privacy once you're dead. Once you're dead, you have no right in privacy. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of off the table. But from my standpoint, I kept saying to myself, well, what happens, let's say, if there's an actor, all right, let's take Stan off to the side, that says, I don't want to have anything to do with Disney anymore because of X, Y, and Z, right? All right. And then after, in the same situation like Stan, he has an estate, he has an ongoing trust or something to handle the money that comes in. Like somebody like Marilyn Monroe, I think still makes over $1 million a year,
Really?
Yeah. So with respect to that, can now the executor
Make
or
a
the
decision
trustee
to reverse that.
go and say, hey, Disney comes and says, hey, you know what? You played this part in Star Wars. Who was it? Like Peter Cushing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They used him. You played a part in Star Wars. We want to use him again. But suppose Cushing had said, I don't have anything to do with it. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's a legit point.
In our culture, we honor the dead, and the people that handle postmortem stuff are supposed to at least consider what the deceased would have wanted. So that was kind of what my initial response was, my initial thought was.
Yep.
And it's not so different now.
Because that is my question. Like, I think all of us heard the first thing, right? And a lot of us reacted either positively or negatively to what we were hearing, depending upon one's point of view. And then sometimes as you take in additional information, you sometimes shift, right? Maybe you soften what you think. Maybe you read a different article that gives you a different take. So I am curious to that point, whether your perception of this situation has changed over the last several days as you've read more stuff, as you've marinated on some of this. Talk with me about that.
Yeah. Well, what I did was I started, I recall.
It's okay to just say no. I'm in the same spot as I was.
No, but not quite. All right. And here's why. Because I started thinking back, and I remembered that they used Marilyn Monroe in a commercial, I think, for perfume, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was Fred Astaire or somebody doing a dance routine.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that they've used, like Peter Cushing, and like Carrie Fisher, they've used them post-mortem in Star Wars movies. I also know that they certain singers have gone on tour, frankly, virtually. So from my standpoint, I started thinking to myself, well, a lot of people miss Stan. A lot of people, and some of the people that responded to my IG post were saying that they think it would be good. Wayne, in his usual style, said, I think I'm going to wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
Which in my style, I say, no, full speed ahead. I'm going to be punching it out right now. So I've taken a step back and said, okay, this seems to be part of what our society is now. And I'm not talking about people that are not famous, because that's a whole nother area that's developed. I think I read that Microsoft has developed like a chat bot, and that they can take stuff that you've done digitally and develop something so that you can speak to your deceased father, brother, whatever. And I don't even want to touch that, because I think that's a lot of emotional stuff going on there.
That's creepy.
It's creepy. So here, there is emotion there, but the emotion seems to me to be mostly from the standpoint of fans, a love of Stan.
Yeah.
And not wanting to let go, notwithstanding what they say, you should let go and go forward. They don't want to let go. So we are in a situation here where it seems that this is going to be the new process. And I think it's like a lot of other things that are digital, and again, I put my lawyer's cap on. I think about it that way. And I say, just like a lot of digital stuff that's going on now with Facebook and Twitter and all of that, the law follows it. It doesn't go in front of it. All right. There could be some laws or legal stuff that exists now. I do know that many states have passed laws that indicate that in your will or whatever kind of post-mortem type of document you have, you need to designate someone to take over your social accounts.
Really?
Okay? Yes, because I didn't know that until my lawyer told me that. So I said, listen, I'll just give my son the passwords. He goes, no.
Yeah.
So at least in New York, there was that requirement. You don't have to do it, obviously, but it's a requirement under the law. So someone can take over your accounts, close them up, download photos, whatever they need to do legally.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't follow up with that, so I don't know what would happen if you didn't do that. But the point of the matter is we're going forward in that direction. And so for me, what I would like to see is maybe I take Wayne's perspective and say, let's see how it works out. But from my perspective, I really would like to see something that indicates that, some parameters that are in there and what needs to be done,
Parameters on how his likeness is potentially to be used. Is that what I'm hearing? Like guardrails
parameters
around?
also in terms of whether or not it can be used. That would be my preference.
Okay.
All right. I do know there are a lot of actors right now, because of what they've seen, that have developed contracts with respect to that, and they have indicated it's okay. Here's how it's going to work. That's great from my standpoint. If you want to do that and set it up in a way so that your representatives after your death can go ahead and sign a nice lucrative contract because you want your descendants to make more money, and that's a way of doing it, fine.
But let me ask you this. Hasn't the ship already sailed on Stan, right? If the deal has been struck for the next 20 years, I mean, essentially what we're talking about is it's done, right? Right. Yeah. So there won't necessarily be a need for them to disclose any type of parameters unless they just want to combat the negative press. And there is a lot of press. If you search for Stan Lee news, you see lots of articles where people are like, this is morbid, right? So I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll have to see. But one of the questions that I do want to ask you is, a lot of what I saw were people like Wayne Squirrel Madness that were like, let's take a wait and see approach. Other folks were saying it's cool if they do use his likeness in a tasteful manner. In your mind, where you start thinking about what's tasteful and maybe what's not tasteful, have you given any thought to that? Like, for example, is it okay if they use old footage of Stan Lee? Is that cool? His voice, his face, is that okay? In your mind?
Think depending on the context, yes. I don't have any problem with that because he already did that. Arguably, he knew he was being videoed probably or didn't care. And so that belongs to somebody now. Right. And so if they wanted to use that in some fashion, that's fine. That's what they did with Carrie Fisher, along with some AI. They took some stuff from whatever, I forget which type of movie it was, and put it into the Skywalker movie so that they could kind of finish the story. And so it wasn't, kind of creating something out of nothing, which they did with Phil Orbison when he went on tour. And it wasn't very good, actually.
But to that point of like AI, and you actually got to this point a lot sooner than I was ready for. So I want to kind of circle back on it, which is perfectly fine. But would you draw the line at them programming old footage, programming his voice, using, I don't know, some IT wizardry to make him say and do things that he never said and did? Is that going too far, right? A dancing Stan Lee, is that too far, right? I mean, like, legitimately, this is the stuff that I think they have the ability to do. Is that too far? Because that's not Stan, right? So let me pause there.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get the right way to answer that question. From my standpoint, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But it goes back to that whole control element. What would Stan have wanted? How would he have wanted this to work, assuming he would have agreed to it? Yeah. You're right. The ship has sailed. So we can't go back and say, what are the parameters? The parameters are between his daughter and Disney, basically. They're going to establish something. Hopefully, when Carrie Fisher was used that way, I think both her brother and her daughter approved it.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. So it's really going to come down, I think, if her daughter and her daughter's attorneys were smart, we need to approve these things.
Yep.
And
so that's one of the big
control.
That's one of the big unknowns. And I think I raised that point on Sunday's show is it just a open blanket license? Or are there parameters of, okay, we want to approve your use of him and we want to see it. We want to hear the idea before you move forward, because to me, that's the best way to protect someone's legacy, is to say, we're going to sign off on this. And if dad didn't want that, if that's in poor taste, we can shut that down, right? That to me is like the best way to be, versus like a blank, use them how you use them. That to me seems like a recipe for disaster, even though you would assume that the people that were able to touch that license would have good judgment. You would assume, but one person's poor taste is, so.
Well, and that goes back to where you told me, have I changed my mind a little bit? From a personal standpoint, I still don't really like it. But in sitting back and thinking about that, giving his daughter all the props, I think if it was my daughter, she'd be looking out for my interests. So
yes,
and unless we see differently, I'd consider that. And Disney has a lot to gain or lose from this. If they have a dancing Stan Lee, I mean, think of what the reaction's going to be. I mean, people are going to be really upset. If they do something where it doesn't look like it's Stan, at the very least, they'll be criticized.
Yeah.
And if they do it, put it in a movie, that's going to even be worse. And let me just say, from a movie standpoint, I think if they go further than what he's already done, like these little kind of appearances, and sometimes he says something, sometimes he doesn't. If they go further than that, and I'm not talking about animated stuff, okay, that's a whole nother story. But if they go further than that, I think that would be, from my standpoint, problematic. I think
I honestly kind of agree with that. If Stan's throughout the entire movie, like that would be a little weird, because that's not Stan. That's not how Stan shows up. Stan shows up in the little notes in the story as you're reading it. He adds that extra layer of commentary that makes you smile when you read it, right? He shows up in the cameo making a couple of comments. He's in the background going by, and you're like, that's Stan. That's the role that Stan plays, and that's what makes, in my mind, seeing him so wonderful, is that you never know where it's going to be, but it's wonderful when it happens, and I didn't grow up with Stan, but I will tell you, I feel like I know Stan.
Sure.
Just being honest, you read enough old Stan stories, Stan gets in your head, because you read the notes, you read his comments, and you start to feel like you know him, even though you don't. Go ahead, brother.
Well, because Stan, and I mentioned this in my last video, where I did a video on the Superman versus Spider-Man Treasury Edition.
Yep.
And one of the things when I was researching it was, a statement by Stan. Stan had indicated that at a point in time when he started the letter sections and he'd read the letters, he felt less like an editor and more like a caretaker. He said he would talk to through the letter pages and so forth. He would be talking to the fans, and he would try to do what the fans wanted. And that's what endeared him to us, really, because he's a showman, obviously, or was a showman. But when you grow up with him and see what he did all throughout, especially in those, in the 60s and 70s, you felt like you knew the guy. You felt like he cared about you. That's why I was a big Marvel fan in the 60s and 70s.
Yep.
And incidentally, I just want to tell everybody that I refused to go on Reggie's show unless he changed the wall. And so I was happy that he agreed to do that.
It's a little bit of a tribute, brother. It's fitting. It's fitting that it's my first wall and I have a DC guy on. It's like coincidental, right?
Right.
But I thought that would be cool. I thought, I thought about it a couple of weeks ago, and the books have been sitting over here to my right for quite some time. And I was like, I am going to have my first DC wall ever, and just cool stuff. Anyway, Joe, I want to thank you for coming on the show, man. Where can people get a hold of you on the social media when they want to throw you a follow and also view some of your content?
Right. So in IG, it's Anachronic_comics. And on YouTube, it's Anachronic Comics. And I just want to say, on Friday night, a bunch of us are going to have our 8th, I think, comic book crowd show. And it's going to be a really interesting topic, 9 p.m. And so if you guys want to tune in and check it out, that would be really great.
I encourage you guys to check it out. These guys have a good time on Friday night. They have a good time. But Joe, I want to thank you for coming on, brother. And sooner or later, I'm going to perfect being able to say the name of your Instagram and YouTube channel.
Well, that's why I put my name down. You don't have him down there, but it says just call me Joe. And if you remember when I first changed that to Anachronic Comics, you couldn't pronounce it back then either.
Nope. Nope. It's one of those things, man. I have to practice it, and then I try to picture it, and then it gets jumbled, But I will get better. I will get better. Joe, it is good to see you. Thank you for coming on, brother. I absolutely appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Reggie.
Take care. And I did not cut him off except for like that last little word. The last little word got cut off. But anyway, again, I wanted to have Joe on because I think his perspective is really interesting as a comic book fan, as somebody that's been a fan for a long period of time, also as an attorney. I thought that his perspective would be awesome to have. I also learned a little bit that I need to update my will to update all of my social media accounts, because as you would imagine, as a YouTuber, I have a ton of social media accounts and all kinds of passwords and stuff like that. So I definitely need to look into that. We did our wills and all that stuff not that long ago, but we did not receive any of that kind of counsel from our attorney. So I don't know what's up with that, but we may need to we may need to make a couple of adjustments. All right. So thank you guys. Joe showed up, man. I mean, again, one of the great things is about the community that we have is I can literally invite just about anybody on here, and folks will show up and they will deliver. And I think it's fantastic. And it's just a great illustration of how this community is built, So what is that? I need this. Man, I'm going to tell you right now. It is not a fun experience. It is not a fun experience to sit down with your significant other or even alone and to talk about you dying. It is not enjoyable. But I am very glad that we actually did it, because I think that we are better positioned for it. It's the more responsible thing to do. But it was not my jam. It was not my jam at all. So the next guest that I want to have on is somebody that has been on the show before. And this person is an incredibly talented person that I've had the pleasure of getting to know a little bit over the last, 4 months, 5 months, something like that. And I'm constantly impressed by this person's talent. And I want to welcome to the show, Delia. Delia, how you doing? You were on mute. We need to unmute you.
Sorry, I was on and just in case. Hi, I'm doing okay. How are you?
I am doing well. It is good to see you. Last time we tried to do this deal, you didn't work so well, but now you're back and it's good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be seen.
So for those folks that don't know, Delia is the main artist that is working with us on Isolation. Incredibly talented artist. You've probably seen her work on Instagram, or you've probably seen it on the website or on YouTube, because I've been showing her stuff everywhere I can. But the reason, Delia, that we have you on is because we are going to reveal 2 of the covers that you have worked on for Isolation issue number 1. How excited are you for this reveal?
Very excited. Very excited.
We've been working on this for a while, and I'm ready. I'm ready to show people this stuff. So what we'll do is we're going to throw up cover 1, cover A. And then we're going to talk about cover A, what went into it, all that kind of stuff, the emotions that you're trying to evoke by doing this, the process, all that kind of stuff. So this right here, if I can get it right, is cover A for Isolation. And
it's so good with the train.
Is this your first time seeing it with the trade on there?
Yeah.
Oh my. That's Doug's bad. I was about to say my bad, but I'll blame Doug. Doug did it. It looks really good though, doesn't it?
So cool. Oh, yeah. I'm dying. Oh,
as soon as it came into my inbox, let me shrink it down so folks can see it a little bit better. As soon as it came into my inbox, I was like, yeah. I printed out all the covers and I spread them across my table, and I was like, this is good stuff. This is good stuff.
I'm like shaking a little bit.
I didn't know this is your first time seeing it. So, So this is cover A, Delia. This is your art on issue number 1 of Isolation. What are we seeing here? Without revealing any of the secrets, right?
Yeah.
What are we seeing here as we look at this image?
Well, I can talk a little bit about like the inspiration. I don't want to get into actually what it is. So when I talked to Doug about cover ideas, One of the themes that we played around with was like 80s, 90s horror poster inspiration. So, you know, like Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees kind of vibes. So, you know, very silhouetted, like very black around the sides, and then like an image within an image sort of thing. One of the covers I saw recently, because I was going back and watching old horror, was I Know What You Did Last Summer,
Yeah.
which has kind of a cover that, or not a cover, a poster that has like the portraits in another image and stuff. And I was like, I love this. So let's see that. So I can't say anything about anything that's on there, but
But that was kind of, so wait a minute.
vibe.
Did you go back and watch the horror movies because you were working on a kind of horror comic, or was this just something you do on a Saturday night?
It's something I do when I draw. Because horror movies are easy to not pay attention to. So if I want to watch it, I can, and then if I don't, then, you know, I'm like, I can, especially ones I've seen before. So it's not like super investy or whatever, and especially the old ones where they're just really dumb.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they're iconic for a reason, but but they are also.
No, we heard you say dumb already. It's good. It's already out there. You can't take that one back. But that's interesting. Not music, horror movies. That is fascinating to me. Talk with me a little bit about your process for creating this, right? Does this start out traditionally with a pencil and paper, then transition to digital? Is this digital only? Like, talk with me about like the process of creating this thing.
Okay, so the process of specifically this one, because we kind of toyed around with the positioning and everything. I find it easier to do that in digital, because you can blow things up and shrink things down and move things around if you don't like an angle. So the pencils, which are very, very loose sketch, are done digitally. And then I printed a very light blue line on some watercolor paper. And then I did traditional pencils over that. So I went back in, much like I do with the actual interiors, when I print out, like, you know, the rough that Elena does, and then I go in and I do pencils and inks over that. Then with this, it was kind of that vibe. And then once the traditional pencils were on, I just started painting it instead. So color came first, and then the black ink, and then more color on top of that.
So is this watercolor and ink, or like, what are we looking at, right? It's specifically.
Okay, so I started with watercolor.
Yep.
And then I watercolor pencil, actually.
Okay.
And then I did like watercolors that come in like the little squares, which are brighter. And then I've got them like right here. I'm not going to show the brand because this is not like, you know, sponsored or anything, but they're it's like a water-based ink pen.
Check that out.
Yeah, and so I'll draw with this, and then I'll go in with water over it and kind of like bleed it a little bit. But if I want it really dark and saturated, I just use this straight up.
Check that out.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
I'm glad that I asked that question, because I didn't know if you were going to show any of the utensils or materials. So that was kind of cool. I did not expect that.
I have them sitting right here.
But I also noticed that you're playing around with some funky colors, right? Like there's some reds, some blues, some yellows, right? Then you have the contrasted black background. I mean, there's a lot here. Did you picture this in your head this way, or was it more like, you know, I've seen other artists, they just move their hand across and then magic happens? Like, was there a mental picture, or did you just wave your hand and this beautiful thing came out of the other end?
Oh, I wish there was a mental picture, but I can't mental picture. I think I mentioned that last time, but without getting into that, what it was I took the technical. I was like, okay, I sketched out the idea, and then I showed it to Doug, and I said, hey, I think this is great, symbolically, narratively, everything. What do you think? He said, yes, I like. And then he said, I like these like kind of like more neon, more like not traditional colors for like skin tones or whatever. And then he sent me a Blade Runner poster, and I was like, yes. So blue and orange are some of my favorite colors anyway to use together. So I just kind of ran with that, and I went with that for like a theme. So you'll see that theme in the second one as well.
I think it's wonderful, just the give and take, right? Like the
Yeah.
relationship between, you know, Doug having a little bit of a vision, you having a vision, you guys kind of lending a little bit of creative energy to one another, you know, me coming in and being like, I don't know about any of this stuff, what you guys are talking about, but just make me a pretty picture. I mean, it's wonderful to watch. And I think it's awesome to hear you kind of explain the process to other people. I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on, was to talk about that. And then for all of this, we did this in isolation of having the trade dress apply. But to your point, the trade dress being applied to it, and it opens my mind up. I think it's really awesome the way that it all came together, because you have some action at the top, if you will, and you definitely have some action down at the bottom with the axe handle. It just lends itself to a wonderful cover.
I have the original sitting like right here. Do you want me to show it?
Yes,
Okay,
please. Let's take this off the screen and let's do this. Yeah. That's
cool.
cool.
Oh, it's glaring. I'm sorry.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
it's the original.
And unfortunately, Doug owns it.
I was gonna say it's sold. Sorry, guys.
It's just unfortunate how that worked out. That
hurt
Doug got
me too.
I said to him, I was like, Doug, you take first pick. He was like, I want this one. I said, oh, I feel that deeply, you know, because it's incredible. It really is incredible. And I think that's honestly the reason why we selected it as cover A, because it is just really fantastic. It really is. So let's go ahead and take this one off the screen. And then we'll go ahead
a comment that said, do I get a Halloween vibe from it? I'm like, yes, absolutely. Yes, that was what we were going for.
So there's a couple of people here. Wow, love it. I love that cover. Beautiful.
Oh,
Doug says beautiful. Of course he does, because he owns it. He's like, yeah, it's great. It's the greatest cover ever. Auction time. No, sir. No, sir. This is a good comment here. That's a good comment. That's a comment. Let me see. I'm scrolling through some of the comments. Oh, that was from Kevin. Do I get a Halloween vibe?
Yes.
She watches horror movies while she's drawing, bro. Of course. It's probably like a Freddy Krueger face hidden in the dark paint or something like that, you know?
I love Freddy Krueger. So good. He's my favorite.
I actually did watch some Jason recently. I watched a little Jason. So anyway, let's go ahead and look at the next cover. This is cover C. Where is it? Right here. This is cover C. Let me shrink this one down just a little bit so folks can see it. And again, we have a slightly different type of depiction going on here. We have, you know, a guy in the background, which I think, no, people have never seen this before. We have a guy in the background, a guy in the foreground. What are we seeing here, Delia?
Actually, well, you have seen the guy before in one of the pages that was put out there.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I forget sometimes what I've shown and what I haven't shown and who I showed it to. So thank you for keeping me honest.
No, it's okay. I just wasn't sure if I was supposed to say it, which is why.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
But yeah, he's in that one page, the first page that you put out. And so without getting into the characters or anything with this one too, one of the other ideas in this one was Doug's idea. He was thinking, you know, maybe something with like the character in the foreground has a lot of black, and so if you had him and then we had like another figure kind of faded into the black, but then I kind of pitched flip side, almost like a vintage mystery novel. I mean, it's a little bit lighter than this, but if you think like Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, kind of 60s, 70s, still going with that like maybe murder mystery vibe sort of deal. And so, you know, we've got on those covers, you always have like the detective and then the mystery. And so that's kind of the vibe we were going with here.
Oh my gosh, you're so silly. You're so silly.
Yes.
This one again came together quite nice, and I think part of what we really liked about this one is in that page that was released, there was the flashlight in the circles of the flashlight. You basically brought that same element here with that, and I think that's part of what made this one really cool was those light circles contrasted against the dark of the left side. You know, we're definitely dancing around some language, but again, a really cool cover. And to your point earlier, you pulled over a lot of that same color palette here, right? You see the blues and the oranges and a little bit of the reds. Do you want to talk a little bit about that to make a slightly different point of how you did it here?
I used a lot of it for highlights and shadows, but I also like if stuff was really well lit but still shadowed. So for example, the flashlight is being blocked by the gun and the hand, then it casts a slight shadow on the face, but not enough to actually black it out or turn it blue. Then it's more of like a dark red, you know? So it was kind of a lot of like balancing. I wanted the figure in the foreground to be more cool so that it kind of faded away, and then the focus to be more on the officer in the background.
There you go. And I think it came together incredibly well. Do you also have this one sitting off to the side, or is that been packaged up? Let's go ahead and show that one. Let's go ahead and put it up there. Hold on. Let me take this off screen. Go ahead so folks can see it.
Yeah. Oh, they've got that glare from the ring light. Sorry, guys.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the glare. We're used to glares over here. It came together. So how long did it take you to make these covers, right? Because I heard you walk through the process, some pencils, some inks, some colors, some this, some that. Beginning to end, how much time estimated did we spend on each one of those covers?
I don't know. I was working on a couple other covers at the same time.
Yeah. Just make it up. We won't even know. Just make it up.
6 hours?
I think one of the crazy.
It's probably, I don't know, give or take.
One of the crazy things for me is that when we were on the call,
and
it was me, you, and Doug, and we were talking about it. You were digitally manipulating the figures and the layers. You were shrinking them. You were changing their positions. And it was crazy to see you do that and to go from, hey, we think this might work, you drawing it digitally, moving it around, and then ultimately to see the fit. It was amazing, just amazing to see how it all comes about, right? And I mean, I see almost every step and I'm still amazed at what comes out. You know, I mean, just being honest, you know, it's a really cool thing.
I think it's so funny because for me, it's just the process, you know, and so I don't even think about it. I'm just like, oh yeah, I just move that. And those hours don't include the preliminary work. Actually, that's just me painting. So, you know,
it's just, again, you don't think about it, but it is like magic for those people that like myself that are not creative, right? It's like magic. It literally is just wonderful to see, you know, we verbalize an idea and then you bring that idea to life. And before you know it, it's going to be on a comic in your hand. Like literally it'll be a comic in your hand, which there is no greater feeling. Like I've never created a comic, but I've been part of comics. And when you hold it in your hand, it's a whole nother thing. And I cannot wait to hear what it's like when you hold Isolation, these two covers in your hand. That's going to be exciting.
There will be a lot of squealing. I'm going to be really excited because this is one of like my first, I worked on something that was a little smaller, but this is like my first like longer thing. And I'm just so ready. So ready.
So am I. I'm ready. We talked to the printer earlier today. We are trying to make some magic happen. And I cannot wait for people to get Isolation in their hands so that they can fully appreciate all of the hard work that has gone into this project over the last few months. And then we even have a meeting, I think on Friday, to talk about issue 2. So it's going down. It's going down. Delia, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Where can people get a hold of you on the social media? And just let's be super clear. Do not reach out to her asking her to work on your project. Do not do that. She is busy and she is taken. With that said, Delia, where can people get a hold of you on social media?
It's _Delia Marie on Instagram and Twitter. And then on Facebook, it's Delia Marie Art. I think you have them, but I can text them and send them to you if you post them in the description.
Yeah, you're gonna go into the chat if you want to post it there. I can also put it in the description.
In like the private chat?
Not right now, not into the private chat, into the regular chat. Not right now when I let you go.
Okay.
Delia, come on. We got to practice. Delia, it's
I'm
honestly,
terrible at this. I'm sorry.
no, you're doing a fantastic job. And I'm glad again, like we had you on the show before, but it wasn't as much fun because we couldn't see your facial expression. We couldn't hear you as well, right? But you more than made up for it with these amazing covers and with your performance tonight. And again, I want to say thank you for coming on and hanging out with us a little bit. I think these folks are excited to see your artwork and get it in their hands. So I'll talk about that next. But Delia, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening, guys.
And I did not cut her off. How about that? All right. So I saw a couple of comments in the section here about when the book is going to be available. We are getting close. We are getting close to doing the pre-book or the pre-orders for Isolation. It is coming up. Let me show you guys these covers one more time. This is cover A by Delia. Again, super fantastic cover that she has put together. That is cover A. Let me show you guys cover B because I showed cover B in a previous show. This is cover B by Eddie Draws It. He did an incredible job with this homage to Frank Frazetta, just incredible. And then the very last cover that I'll show you tonight, Words Matter, the cover C is this one right here, also again by Delia. So I am getting close. I am getting super close to being able to offer up the book for sale, right? So we are still aiming for having the book ready in July, and I am aiming towards possibly June 1 for making the book available for sale. There are a few things that I still need to work through. As you would imagine, we have multiple covers. We have lots of options for those covers, right? As you think about the raw, as you think about yellow label, as you think about blue label, as you think about things that we're doing for Patreon, there is a lot that is going on, and I need a few more days to iron out some of those details. But rest assured that I'm working as quickly as I can to make the magic happen. Huge shout out to all of those comic shops that have actually signed up to carry Isolation, because there are some that have signed up, and there are a couple of more that are on the verge of signing up. So not only will we be able to make Isolation available to folks individually, but we're also going to be making it available to communities, right? We're going to make it available. There are also some really awesome announcements that we will be making very, very soon. So there you go. Again, I will. So I will tell you. So let me be clear. Cover A, I showed you. Cover B, which is this one right here, is I'm giving you the ratios because there are ratio variants. Cover B is a 1 in 10. This is going to be a 1 in 10 variant. And then I do not have this committed to memory, so I may slightly lie to you, but I'm fully disclosing my lie. I think that this is 1 in 25. So we have a cover A, we have a 1 in 10, and we have a 1 in 25. That's basically how we're going to do it. So again, we have 3 different covers. We're going to have raw, we're going to have graded, we're going to have signed graded. So there's a lot of complexity with this stuff. But again, just some awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Woo! No. Oh, there's a question about Canada. So, yes, we are going to make this available to Canadians. I will do what I can to make it available to those outside of Canada as well. Again, these are some of the details that I need to think about. But Canada, North America, yes, for certain, right? The cost for Canada shipping will be higher. What I'll probably end up doing is collecting the cost for the book, the cost for shipping in the US. For those that are outside the US, when I get ready to ship, I'll send you a message and be like, hey, I need you to send the extra money to cover the exact shipping cost for you to your destination. On the back side of it, like I did before with the guy, we will process international orders, and we'll probably do the international orders through FedEx just because we have a discount there. So we'll probably go that route. But the goal is to make it available in North America for sure. And then we will hopefully be able to make magic happen internationally as well. So the 1 in 10 is no joke, man. The one in 10 is no joke. Again, cover A, no joke at all. I mean, all of the covers are really, really cool. I am super excited about like this whole process that we've gone through. The work that has gone into this is something to be proud of. And I will tell you guys, we are at the beginning of making some really cool announcements. There are other covers. There are some other announcements that I think are really going to be awesome. I definitely want to encourage you guys to stay tuned to the channel. Stay tuned to regiecollects.com because everything will be made available there. The folks that are Patreon members are already locked in. Patreon members from May to July will actually be eligible for a Patreon specific cover. We're going to do something special for Patreon members that are a member. It is only going to be available for Patreon members that have been a part of this from May to July. So stay tuned for that. And I think it's going to be really cool. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. But we are trying to do some really cool stuff. And as I said before, I think in many ways, a lot of us are living our best life. I think Doug, Delia, and myself are probably living our best life right now. So stay tuned. With that, we're going to wrap this up. I think I basically covered off on everything. There was the whole CGC thing. We may revisit that if you guys came in a little late. We may revisit that during an upcoming show, but I had a lot of comments around that at the beginning of the show. So if you missed that, came in a little late, I definitely want to encourage you guys to check that out because I have some thoughts. Folks may not like those thoughts, but I do have some thoughts. Oh, one other thing I'll mention to you is I released a video. The video yesterday is not performing well. Go watch the video. The video talks about how to pick the best grading company for you, right? It may not be CGC, it may not be CBCS, it may not be EGS, it may not be PGX, right? But there is a video out there that I released yesterday that helps people to think through which grading company do they want to go with, right? And I think it's a pretty good video. I encourage you guys to check it out. It is worth the time, at least I do believe. All right, with that said, we're going to wrap this thing up. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me just a little bit. As a reminder, this show will be rebroadcast on the podcast. Just search for Regie Collects on your preferred podcasting platform, and you will find me there. As always, if you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.